Colossal Questions.
Why are there 5,280 feet in a mile? The basic idea for the mile dates all the way back, as many things do, to the Roman Empire. Back in Rome, they used a unit of measure called the mille passum, which literally just means 1,000 paces in Latin. The average pace was considered to be about 5 feet, so 1 mille passum was Roman 5,000 feet. That all makes sense, but how did we go from 5,000 Roman feet in a mille passum to 5,280 feet in a modern mile? Well, that happened much later in England towards the end of the 1500s. Since the time of Rome, different units of measurement had been developed in different areas all across Europe. So the English Parliament decided they needed to determine an official modern length for a mile that people could use and agree on. They decided to base their new mile on an old-timey measurement called a furlong. A furlong was 660 feet, which is the length a team of oxen could plow in a day. Parliament eventually decided a mile should be made up of 8 furlongs, or 5,280 feet. But that's not where the story ends. In 1795, a new, simpler method of measurement called the metric system was invented, and aimed to take a lot of the randomness out of things so they could be measured more evenly. Instead of a mile being 5,280 feet, and each foot being 12 inches, things could be measured in kilometers, which is 1,000 meters, and 1 meter is 100 centimeters, and so on. It took time for the metric system to take hold across the world, but today every country in the world either has the metric system in place or is in the process of transitioning to it. All countries except one, the US of A. So, why did the United States stick with miles, feet, and inches when the rest of the world switched to the even more modern metric system? The only real reason we've never switched is because, well, it would be inconvenient. You see, big business in the US owned factories that were all built using precise measurements in feet and inches. Switching to a new system would be costly and time-consuming. The government has tried to make the change in the past, but no bill has ever passed to officially switch the country over to metric. So, why is a mile a seemingly random 5,280 feet? Because, well, the system we use is old and wonky, and we're too stuck in our ways to make the change. That about sums it up. How does recycling work? It might surprise you to learn, but most recycling centers around the world only accept 2 types of plastic: polyethylene terephthalate, or PET, and high-density polyethylene, or HDPE. That's right, not all plastics are recyclable. So how do you tell which ones you can recycle and which ones you can't? Look for the recycling symbol on your plastic item. If there's a number 1, it's PET. And if there's a number 2, it's HDPE. There's a total of 7 numbers you can find inside the recycling symbol. So there's lots of different items that can't be recycled at all. Why? Usually because they're made up of more than one type of plastic. And when they're melted down, the mix of plastics contaminate each other. Everything that can't be recycled is sent to the landfill as trash. Plastic that can be recycled is sent to the recycling centers, where they separate PET plastics from HDPE. Then they make sure it's all clean. Anything dirty is usually thrown out. That's why it's important to wash dirty plastic before you recycle it. Once it's all sorted, labels are removed and the plastic is shredded, bound together, and sold to processors who melt those shreds into pellets and use them to make new items. Unfortunately, only about 9% of the plastic we recycle actually makes it all the way through the process. Around 16% gets burned for electricity or heat. And the rest? Well, it ends up in landfills or bodies of water. Not good. Plastic recycling also suffers from the fact that each piece can really only be recycled a few times before the quality gets bad enough that it can no longer be used and just gets thrown out.
Glass, on the other hand, can be recycled endlessly by crushing, blending, and melting it together with sand and other ingredients. Even still, only 1/3 of the glass thrown away each year in the US is recycled. Still not great. Metal recycling is sent to scrapyards where it's separated, crushed, compacted, then melted down into sheets, which is used to make new metal items. Unlike plastic or glass, metal fares much better. Close to 70% of all steel in North America is recycled each year. That's more than paper, plastic, and glass combined. Those recycling numbers are a bit eye-opening, and they might make you wonder, how can we make sure more plastic is actually getting recycled rather than piling up on our land and in our seas? Well, the unfortunate truth is, there's no easy answer. But the most common advice: reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce means to cut back on the amount of stuff we use so we're not making so much trash in the first place. Reuse means finding new ways to use old plastic before you throw it out. And recycling, of course, means cleaning and recycling everything you can. So, how does recycling work? Well, as it turns out, not as well as we might have thought. So be mindful, make extra effort, and feel free to recycle your newfound knowledge as much as you want. How does adoption work?
Adoption is a super special process where parents decide to raise a child living without a guardian as their own. It's a legal process that officially makes the adopted child part of the family, just like any other kid. Once the paperwork is signed and all the interviews and background checks are made, the adoptive parent officially becomes the legal parent of the child. There's no legal difference between an adopted child and a kid who's born into a biological family. So making it official is a huge step for any family looking to grow through adoption. There are tons of reasons why people might decide they want to adopt. Some are unable to have kids on their own, and others just see it as a great way to grow their family. So, while adopted children might not share their genes with their adoptive parents, they are raised with all the same love and affection of any other member of the family. And of course, it's not just babies that get adopted. Kids of all ages are adopted every year. In fact, many adoptions aren't a stranger taking in a baby in need. Lots of kids end up being adopted by someone they already know and love, like a step-parent, relative, or a foster family they've lived with for years. Sometimes an adopted child might decide they want to learn about their biological parents. It's very normal and natural to be curious. Some states and other countries make it easy to find out who they were, and others make it pretty hard. Some never meet their biological parents, or never even have an interest in them. It all depends on the person and the family. Nowadays, thanks to the power of the internet, it's much easier than it used to be for people to search out public information about their biological relatives. Aw, now that's sweet.
What is a hurricane? Each year, around 150 hurricanes form all across the globe in the warm ocean waters near the equator. These massive storms are called hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, Caribbean Sea, Gulf of Mexico, and Eastern Pacific Ocean. But in the Western Pacific, they're known as typhoons. In the Southern Pacific and Indian Oceans, they're called cyclones, and scientists call them all tropical cyclones no matter where they happen. But no matter what you call them, you'll best recognize one by its colossal size, distinctive swirly shape, and big blank spot in the middle, known as the eye of the storm. They form over warm tropical ocean water as the warm air floating just above the water rises and is replaced by cooler air higher in the sky. Now that it's closer to the warm ocean, the cool air will start to warm up and rise, making a cycle. If this cycle starts to happen fast enough, it can cause huge storm clouds to form. Those massive clouds begin to spin. As the spinning cycle continues to suck up hot air, the spiral gets stronger and the winds get faster. When winds get to 39 miles an hour, the weather system officially becomes known as a tropical storm. These are plenty strong enough to cause damage and flooding. Once the wind speed reaches 75 miles per hour, well, that's when the storm is officially considered a hurricane. Some super strong hurricanes have been known to have winds stronger than 200 miles per hour. And if strong winds weren't dangerous enough, hurricanes also tend to be pretty large. Typically around 300 miles across, sometimes up to 600 miles. Not only that, but these storms also move slowly, usually just 10 to 20 miles per hour. That means there's plenty of time for a hurricane to pass overhead, wreaking havoc for upwards of a week at a time. Strong winds and driving rain for miles and miles, all creeping along at a snail's pace. Well, no wonder hurricanes are known for causing so much damage. Most hurricanes build momentum out in the water, but once they hit land, they slowly start to lose strength. Why? Well, without the warm water below to heat up the air, the cycle short circuits and the storm starts to shrink and slow down. Hurricanes might start to die out over land, but it's also when they do the most damage. Storm surges, flooding, downed trees, and flying debris from high-speed winds all make the coast extra dangerous when a hurricane's overhead. So, if you live near a coast that gets hit by hurricanes, cyclones, or typhoons, don't panic. Just make sure to stay prepared, stay safe, and stay alert. Oh, and expect a few things to get wet. Why do giraffes have such long necks? Giraffes are the tallest land mammal on Earth, with the ability to grow up to 19 feet tall. A fully grown adult giraffe's neck can be more than 7 feet long. That's taller than almost everyone in the NBA, even though their necks make up almost half of their height. Giraffes actually have the same exact number of vertebrae in their necks as us humans with our short, squat little necks. That's right, humans and giraffes' necks both have 7 vertebrae. The difference? Giraffe vertebrae can each be over 10 inches long. Ours are a lot smaller than that. Even with the same number of vertebrae though, a giraffe's neck is way more flexible than a human's. That mostly has to do with how the bones join together. The vertebrae in a giraffe's neck connect by ball and socket joints, like the ones that connect your arms to your shoulders. Flail your arms around and you'll notice that this kind of joint can move all around pretty easily. The vertebrae that attaches a giraffe's neck to its back also has a ball and socket joint, unlike a human. This gives a giraffe even more flexibility and causes the hump at the base of their neck. Okay, so that's how the unique neck of a giraffe works, but that still doesn't answer the question. Why are they so long? Well, zoologists do have a couple theories, but the truth is, those long necks are still something of a mystery, even to experts. Some think giraffes developed such long necks to compete with other animals for food. So, as the theory goes, giraffes with longer necks are able to eat plants higher up where others can't reach, giving them easy access to lots of healthy food, usually between 7 and 14 feet up. Over time, giraffes with longer necks flourished eating up high, and giraffes with shorter necks eventually died off. Another popular, more modern theory is that giraffes have such long necks because of a special behavior called necking. That's when giraffes fight each other, using their necks and head, swinging their skull around like a club. The longer and thicker a giraffe's neck, the more likely they are to win the fight. And giraffes that are better at necking and winning are more likely to reproduce, making more babies with long, thick necks. So, why do giraffes have such long necks? Well, no one can say for sure, at least not yet. So, if you've got a passion for Earth's most peculiar mammal, get studying, and maybe you can solve the mystery. what's Christmas like around the world? Many countries have their own unique Christmas traditions. Take Martinique, for example. The island in the East Caribbean has La Ribote, where families visit their neighbors on the days leading up to Christmas and on New Year's Day. They bring lots of good food, like yams, Creole sausages, bite-sized meat pies called pâté salé, and a main course of pork stew. Yum! Southeast of Martinique is Barbados, another island with its own traditional holiday meal. Baked ham with pineapple, rum cake, and a Scottish-inspired dish called jug jug. It's made of pigeon peas or lentils, bacon or pork, hot peppers, beef, onions, chives, corn flour, and butter. Slightly more filling than milk and cookies. Not all Christmas food traditions are about a meal. In Oaxaca, Mexico, December 23rd is known as the Night of the Radishes, where artists carve oversized radishes into detailed designs, competing for prizes. It's pretty impressive stuff. In El Salvador, Christmas wouldn't be Christmas without some fireworks. Families fire off little firecrackers called volcancitos, or little volcanoes, and estrellitas, or little stars. Larger displays light up the sky on Christmas Eve. Over in Africa, large feasts tend to be the norm across a lot of the continent on Christmas. In Kenya, grilled goat meat called nyama choma is popular on the holiday. Tanzanians usually prefer to roast a cow or goat and share it as a village, washing it down with home-brewed drinks. In Liberia, beef, rice, and biscuits is a common Christmas meal. South Africa is known for their famous braais, which are big outdoor Christmas barbecues. It's actually the middle of summer when Christmas rolls around, so having food and festive fun in the sun makes a lot of sense. Australia is another country that's right in the middle of a hot summer when it's Christmas time, so people usually like to spend it outdoors too. Lots of folks hit the beach or even surf the waves in a bright red Santa hat. One of the more modern Christmas traditions takes place in Japan. Kurisumasu Niwa Kentucky for Christmas. Yup, this national tradition started as a Kentucky Fried Chicken marketing campaign back in the 1970s. It was a smashing success and quickly turned KFC into the must-have meal on Christmas Eve. And it's not just fried chicken joints that have a tradition of raking in cash around the holidays. In Spain, they hold a special Christmas lottery every year. Loads of people across the country buy the special lotto tickets and tune in on December 22nd, hoping to win El Gordo, the fat one. The big winner usually takes home around 600 million euros. Talk about a Christmas miracle! And that just scratches the surface. Communities all over the place have tons of other Christmas traditions all their own. So eat up, enjoy time with the people you love, and make sure you're sleeping when it's time for Santa to come.